open again. I don't know why. Oh no, there we go. Yay, I'm on. My computer is
There we go. Okay.
temperamental. So, okay. Got it. Get off there.
All right. Whenever you're ready, Lawrence.
One sec. Just let me get this off there. One sec, please. Off. Am I off here? No. Okay, am I off there? I think
You're
so.
off your phone.
Good morning, everybody. So today is Friday, the 18th, I believe.
17th.
17th. Come on, man.
Oh, 17th, you're right. So sorry, Friday 17th. So we've got actually quite an interesting little chat for everybody today. But as usual, just want to start with the slaughterhouse of failure is not in our destiny. We shall persevere until we succeed. Basically, what we're going to talk about is a little bit about our perception of life and how we handle good events and challenges. Our feelings and reactions can determine the long-term effect of just a moment of action in time. So our businesses have moments of lows and highs. So does everybody else, except that this is our business. So it's up to us to turn the switch and to be able to be in control of the mindset switch. So we got a little story to tell you today and some little reactions to it.
Yeah, so we're going to start with a little parable. And in China, when something bad happens, people will say, Sai Weng Shima, which means remembered the old man who lost his horse, to remind themselves and others that sometimes bad things happen, which carry a silver lining. And that's often the way in which you look at things, which determines their power over your spirit. So this is a caution to all to not get too attached to what happens to us, good or bad. And so the parable goes, a long time ago, a poor Chinese farmer lost a horse. And all the neighbors came around and said, well, that's too bad. And then the farmer said, maybe. Shortly after that, the horse returned, bringing another horse with him. And all the neighbors came around and said, well, that's good fortune. To which the farmer then replied, maybe. The next day, the farmer's son was trying to tame the new horse and fell, breaking his leg. And all the neighbors came around and said, well, that's too bad. And the farmer replied, maybe. Shortly after, the emperor declared war on a neighboring nation and ordered all able-bodied men to come fight. Many died, many were badly maimed, but the farmer's son was unable to fight and spared due to his injury. And all the neighbors came around and said, well, that's good fortune. To which the farmer replied, maybe. So, it's really how we perceive the things that happen to us, good or bad. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about how we control ourselves during times of success and failure and those good or bad outcomes that we have on a daily basis. And so, it's really about not getting too attached to things being good or bad, because that's, we attach ourselves to those things because it's easier for us. It's easier for our psyche to accept either good or bad things rather than maybe. There's a lot of peace, though, that can be had from a mental state in accepting maybe when you think about it. There's peace in not attaching to an outcome. So really, today we're going to be talking about, disengaging from the outcome, which will let you work more freely. In sales in particular, or running your own business, you're going to have lots of highs and you're going to have lots of lows. And it's how you react to those things that is going to determine the outcome.
So as just Dad was saying now, when, you look at an event and you don't automatically jump into the thought that this is a wonderful thing or it's a terrible thing, but you keep an open mind and say, well, maybe, as the parable goes. So I wanted to talk about some examples that are between East and West. So, for example, in the West, here we say I was riding my horse and I fell off, and unfortunately, I broke my leg. Well, in the East, they'd say, I was riding my horse and I fell off. And fortunately, I only broke one leg. So it's just a perception. When we look at good things and bad things, I live in Florida, and we've got not a lot, but we have hurricanes periodically. And when they come, this becomes like a serious event during the year when we start worrying and thinking, and we can see this thing coming and so on. So we kind of tend to think of hurricanes as a bad thing. It's awful. Oh my gosh, this is just a terrible thing. But if we keep an open mind and we look at this thing objectively, we look at things that you focus that are on the good side. So, for example, our collective fear in our families actually make us have conversations. How many conversations do we have with our extraterrestrial kids who live somewhere in the house? You don't even see them because they're stuck on their phones and on their computers. And yet when there's a collective fear, now we start talking to each other. So that's one of the positive things that we can see from a hurricane, because we actually are able to get together and communicate. There's no electricity, so we huddle around a candle, and then we start to think about, wow, what a good thing it is that we've got electricity. We should be more grateful for that, but we don't realize what we have until we lost it. The candle also makes us more intimate, let's call it that way. When we're all huddled around a candle, the storm's going on outside, hurricane wind is blowing and everything, we're sitting there in this collective fear, and we've got this little candle, and we bond more than we would normally do. We can see the hurricane coming several days before. So we've also got to understand how we've prepared for it, how well we've prepared for it. It gives us time to do that. Have we prepared for the storm? Have we prepared enough? Are we helping our neighbors? Do they need any help? Do we need any help? Introspection. It's all to do with mindset eventually. We see the news clips, and we start seeing the devastation that the hurricane brings. Well, that is where we also see, we start to have empathy for people that are less fortunate than us. Not everybody has insurance. Some people lose everything and they have no insurance. We lose everything, but we've got insurance. Not everybody. But these are things that we think about. We think, well, the bad thing of the hurricane is what's coming, but the good thing is I got insurance. The bad thing of the hurricane is coming, but I'm with my family, and we're able to bond. We're able to have empathy. We're able to consider other people. We're able to be more considerate, empathetic. Then when the hurricane is gone, there's that feeling of, oh my gosh, gratitude. I've survived the hurricane. My house is okay. The neighbors are fine. My family's fine. And you look around and you see there's clean air. Wow, the hurricane came and blew away all the pollen that was around and whatever stuff, and it's clean, pure air. So there's another good thing on it. So the life of we have is always full of yin and yang. It's good and bad, it's positive, it's negative, it's strong, it's weak. These are things that happen to us all the time. But these are experiences that make us grow. The personal experiences are what make us grow, especially when we have a problem, when we have a big issue, when we have a problem. If we're lucky to have a big problem, we learn from that. So the other thing is when we survive something, or when we're successful, we've got to learn humility when we're successful. Be humble. You were really successful in something. Wow, don't go out there and, whoa. Be humble about it. because it goes up. What goes up comes down. So today we're celebrating and tomorrow we may not.
Yeah, so the point of this mindset is really to try to live in such a way that nothing is either an advantage or a disadvantage. You know, life is immensely complex, and it's really impossible to tell whether anything that happens to us or, you know, in our daily life, whether that's good or bad, because you never know what the consequence of that fortune or misfortune is going to be. All right. So are things truly good or bad? At the moment that they happen to us, we don't know. So maybe they are. Maybe they are good. Maybe they are bad. But we don't know until we move forward from that experience or that outcome, whether or not it's going to be good or bad. So, you know, one of the things about, you know, owning your own business, you know, it being in sales, is that you have to have a short-term memory. Whether if you're a high-level athlete, you know, because if you focus on a string of good things, it makes the bad things sting that much more, right? Because you've got this endorphin rush from all these good things that happen to you, and then when something bad happens, it automatically takes the wind out of your sails. And conversely, you know, when a string of bad things happen to you, if you focus on them too much, you start to get negative or unmotivated. They also, you know, this string of bad things also make the next good thing that happens even more exciting, releasing more endorphins, more positivity. But that, you know, that makes the next bad thing that happens to you sting all that much more. So it's an unending cycle of highs and lows that affect our daily lives. It's how we react to those things, whether they're good or bad, or maybe they're neither. So, you know, the point is to start thinking about these things differently. You know, you in our business, let's say, you know, you go out and you talk to 1,000 people and nobody's interested in, you know, integrating the scanner into their practice, and then you get one and you're super excited. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? It's how you react to that and how you move forward from that experience and what you do then with that opportunity.
The fuel for, you know, if something goes south, as we call it, we have a challenge and it doesn't work. If we hook into that challenge and we see it as a bad thing and we allow it to dominate us, our mindset starts to look at things in a kind of negative way. And we must not persist in that area. In the same way, when something goes well and we've just placed a scanner or we've just helped somebody with their health or whatever we've done, that's a positive thing. That's a great thing, but don't persist in that area because you'll overlook the other things. By all means, be motivated. The endorphins, as Dan calls them, get switched on and we get excited and we really get, wow, wound up about great thing we've just done and we're excited. By all means, use that as fuel. But if you think that's easy, and because we then start to think, oh, that was a piece of cake. Then you go around thinking it's a piece of cake. And when it's not a piece of cake, then you go into a deep slide again. Say, my gosh, what happened now? Why? Is it me? Is it this circumstance? What happened? I mean, the other one was so easy. And you know, I'm now having a bunch of issues. And this is one of the things that happened with somebody that is very close to me. I was one of the first people that he introduced to the business. And I got the scanner. He was brand new in the business. I got the scanner. I mean, like in the first week or 2 weeks that he had even gone into the business. And he thought this was going to be a piece of old pie. And from then, nothing happened. And he got so discouraged and then quit because he had an immediate rush and he thought, my gosh, this is so easy. I can do this. And then when it doesn't happen again and again, then we start to go into that. So it's a question of the yin and the yang of the mind, the positive and the negative, the strong, the weak. And we've got to balance that. When we have a challenge, Okay, it's a challenge. Learn from that. Yay, I had a challenge. All right, let's go forward. I had a success. Fantastic. They're not all going to be like that. Let's get real.
And what that boils down to is, how do we let those perceived good or bad things affect the outcome of those perceptions? Meaning, are we letting bad things decrease our motivation, or lessen our ability to spend our time on things that are going to move our business forward? And so this whole farmer's approach that we talked about in the beginning, this concept of maybe, reminds me of a concept from Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And those two concepts in the book are that the circle of influence and the circle of concern model. His aim in creating this model was to encourage people to become aware of where they're expending their energy, and why are they expending their energy in those ways? Are they wasting their energy by worrying about problems they can't change? Are they being sidetracked by those distractions? Are they applying these two concepts to be proactive about their life? So the circle of concern encompasses all of our worries at the individual level. So things like societal, global, universal things that are going on in the world. It contains all of the daily anxieties that we have, like things like family, health, work, but it also extends to larger scale worries, things like the economy, political persuasion, climate change, risk of war, things like that. And then the circle of influence is an area within the circle of concern, which encompasses the issues that we do actually have some influence over. So the circle of concern are those things that we really can't, and we don't really have any influence over. Whereas the circle of influence are those things in our lives that we do have control over. And one of those things that we do have control over is how we react to these perceived good or bad outcomes in our life. And if we come at them from a different angle, we don't see them as negative or positive. If we come from a place where we're not expecting it to be a good or bad thing, that maybe it's good or bad, then I think it changes our outlook on how these things affect our daily lives.
So there are two things that come to mind when we talk about these things: circle of influence and circle of concern. So either way, circle of influence and circle of concern, either way, it should not detract us from our focus. We've got to remember that we are on a mission of whatever that mission is. If we're driving, think about your driving, because accidents can be avoided if we just focus on what we're doing. Oh, I burnt myself when I was cooking. Why? Because I was thinking of something else and I didn't put my hand on the thing. I didn't think about putting the, cloth on the on the handle. So accidents can be avoided if we focus on what we're doing. And the circle of influence, the circle of concern, there's only so much you can do. You will not solve anything by having an emotional hemorrhage. People say stress. I have this conversation every day with people. Stress. What is stress? Oh, I couldn't do this. Oh my gosh, I was so stressed. Really? What is stress? It's not being in control. The only thing you can control is your mind. And if you control your mind to be focused on what you're doing, and if you can control your mind to understand that you do everything possible to solve a problem that you've got, whatever it is, you've done everything. And then there's nothing more you can do. Then what? Switch off. You will not solve it by having insomnia and by having emotional hemorrhage. It doesn't work that way. You'll make yourself sick. So the point of the circle of concern and the circle of influence and what we can control, what we can't control, and what is good and what is bad. We look at politics and I think, oh my gosh, good or bad. We look at, whatever it is we're looking at. But stay focused. Stay focused because you're in control of your mind. You're the only one that can dominate your mind. Nobody can dominate it for you. He made me cry. Really? Nobody makes you cry. He made me happy. Didn't make you happy. Nobody makes you do anything. It's our mind control of ourselves. That's where it's about. And if we focus on what we're doing and we know what we want, that's it.
Yeah. So I want to give everybody on the call a real life example of good or bad or maybe. So, most of us on this call have kids, and you think about when your kids are growing up, and most, somebody, I'm sure many people on this call have had this happen where you're cooking something on the stove and your 3-year-old comes over and they see this glowing orange burner on the stove. And that's like a moth to a flame to a child. And what do they want to do? They want to touch it. And they touch it and they burn themselves. Is that good or is that bad? At the moment, it's good, or it's bad. I'm sorry. It's bad because they burn themselves. But the good from that is that they learn not to touch the glowing red burner again in the future. So is it good or bad? Maybe, it's maybe, right? It can be either. It depends on how you look at it. But more importantly, what is the outcome of that particular thing that happened? The outcome is actually positive. So it's both. It's good and it's bad. But it's how you perceive it.
And there's a physical scarring with that child who's burnt his finger. But worse is a mental scarring. The physical scarring is going to be there. Okay, so what? But the mental scarring is going to be determining how you react and how you act in future. So again, it comes down to all about how we react, how scarred we are in a good way or in a bad way, as to how we're going to react in future, what we're going to do, how we're going to act, who we are. Who we are is a consequence of a bunch of, let's call it scarring, good scarring and bad scarring. We're all a consequence of that. And those are the factors that will determine how we react and how we act, good or bad, how we think about it.
You want to take some questions and comments, Lawrence?
Sure. Good timing. Anybody?
Anybody have anything to contribute?
Martin looks like he's going to say something.
Martin was going to say something, but then
Nobody got anything? So we're all happy campers?
Well, you've kind of covered it all. I mean, I'm sure you could go on for hours on this topic, but I guess it's like, okay, now take this just one extra step further into maybe a little bit deeper influence on us with this business. What examples do we run into every day that we can, because of kind of the baggage we carry, we can determine, oh, that's good, I'm not doing this, or that's bad, I'm going to do this. And we kind of sometimes jump left and right as we go through this business. We call that the learning process. But maybe we could diminish some of the hard learning process if we learn this lesson and we respond rather than react, and we embed maybe into our minds a little more frequently than perhaps we already have it now.
Prejudging. Don't prejudge. We have a bad experience and we think everything else is going to be the same in that sphere. So, if we prejudge something, we already have a scar there. But if we go there and say, I had a bad experience, but maybe it wasn't so bad, let me try some more again, somewhere else. So if we don't hook into, as a permanent thing, any major challenge we've had, I would say that. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if you're having a conversation with a physician or a medical device rep, and they seem very interested in what we're doing, but ultimately they decide that it's not the right time for them, or it doesn't fit into their lifestyle or whatever it may be. Yeah, that may be a bad thing, but the bigger thing is, who do they know that it may be the right time for them. So you can turn what you perceive as a bad thing into a good thing by just questioning that person about whether they know somebody who may be interested, right? And then you can turn it into a perceived good thing because now you've got another 1 or 2 prospects that you can talk to, right? And one of the biggest things that I've seen and I've done in this business, in sales in general, is I get excited about something because I perceive that I'm going, it's a good thing, and I'm going to place a scanner or whatever, and then it ultimately doesn't happen, and it takes the wind out of your sales. It's not whether it's good or bad. It's more, for me, it's how does that affect how I move forward next? Do I sit at my desk and kind of slam my fist down on the desk and sulk over what just happened, or do I continue doing what I'm always doing, being disciplined and continuing to make calls that day?
This may sound Pollyannish, but I always look at every new call to somebody as an opportunity to make a friend. And no matter what their response is to my business, I have the opportunity to make a friend. And to me, that overrides the rest of it. The business will come along. But if you can make a friend in that call, you only have that moment in time in the present. Why don't you use it to the benefit of making a friendship? And a friendship then always allows you the opportunity is, can I touch back with you in 3 or 6 months? And so I'd say, don't react to someone saying, not for me. And they may even say it in a rude way, but there may be some goodness in them you see. And it's like, just have this attitude of making a friend. I think you've said that many times, Lawrence.
Well, you've just had a win. By making a friend, you've got a win.
That's right.
And regardless of whether the scanner comes today or in 3 years' time, if it comes, you've at least made a friend. And that's a win. You could look at it and say, it was a loss because I didn't place a scanner, but the objective we have is actually helping people in what however we can to maximize the to attain the maximum level of their potential according to their work ethic. So we made a friend. Yay, it's a perfect thing. Okay, I didn't place a scanner, but what a nice guy. And oh my gosh, he's part of the club that I'm going to be joining now, because there's it's a Jaguar club or whatever it is, Toyota club or whatever. So you've made a friend, and there's a positive thing that comes out of it. There's always positive things that come out. There's a little story about a bird that falls out of its nest, and it falls and it's freezing cold. And so that's a bad thing. But then a cow came along and, put some dung on the bird, nice warm little dung. And the bird now was not shivering to death. It was in this cow pat. And that's a good thing. So then it got out to be happy, and it started chirping, and a crow came along and grabbed it and ate it. So that's a bad thing. So we look at anything, good, bad, and everything else, but there's a consequence to it.
It's a never-ending cycle of good, bad, maybe.
My thing is going back to the maybes and the scars. So every single one of us have scars, right? And I can guarantee you that every single scar you have, you can tell the story as to how you got it. So scars create lessons and learning, and they stay with you forever. They've made an impact on your mind, some way or shape or form, that take them as the maybe. Maybe this scar is going to lead to a beautiful tattoo one day, or maybe this scar will inspire somebody or encourage somebody that has that same marking or something that they view in a negative perspective. So just use your scars as the learning lessons and encouragement for everyone else that may have the same scar. But none of our scars are the same ever. But that's my 2 cents on the scarring.
Thank you.
I love that perspective. That's great. Anything else?
Anybody else? Yeah. No, it's on time. Everybody's got its 10 o'clock thing. So, all right.
All righty.
Anything?
Thank you, everybody.
Jim, for your input and Riley and everybody being on the call. Thanks, Dan.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Look forward
Thank
to
you.
You guys have a great weekend.
Good
Thank
call,
you.
good call.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.